Mateless, as always. Varen's voice sliced through the great hall of Ashvale Keep, silencing the murmur of conversation like a blade through silk. Seraphine felt every eye in the room turn toward her, felt the familiar weight of pity and contempt settle on her shoulders like a shroud. She stood near the eastern wall, half hidden behind a stone pillar, exactly where she'd positioned herself to avoid notice. It hadn't worked. It never worked. 23 years old, Varen continued, descending from the raised platform where the pack's elite had gathered. His dark hair gleamed in the torchlight, his handsome face twisted with the cruel smile she'd once mistaken for charm. 23, and still no wolf has claimed her. Perhaps the moon goddess knows defective goods when she sees them. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Not everyone joined in. Seraphine caught glimpses of uncomfortable faces, averted gazes, but enough did. Enough always did. Her younger sister Bryn pushed through the crowd, her amber eyes blazing. Varen, you have no right. I have every right. Varen's voice hardened. I'm the alpha of this pack, and tonight, we host the Alpha King himself. Should I pretend we don't have a mateless spinster lurking in our midst? Should I hide our shame? Seraphine's hands trembled at her sides. 3 years ago, Varen had stood before the entire pack and declared her his chosen mate. 3 years ago, she had believed him, and 3 years ago, on the night of their binding ceremony, he had publicly rejected her, claiming the mate bond had never truly formed. She still didn't understand why. One moment, he'd been looking at her with what she thought was love. The next, his eyes had filled with something like fear, and he'd torn his hand from hers as if her touch burned him. I knew from the moment I touched her, he'd announced to the stunned assembly. There is something wrong with this woman. Something broken. The moon goddess has marked her as unfit. Unfit, broken, defective. The words had followed her ever since. Sarah. Bryn's hand found hers, squeezing tight. Don't listen to him. He's just performing for the king's arrival. But Seraphine barely heard her. Her attention had shifted to the great doors at the far end of the hall, where a sudden commotion signaled the arrival of the royal entourage. The Alpha King was here. She had never seen him before, few outside the Northern Dominion had. Thalric Valdrin was more myth than man, a figure of whispered legend. They said he'd killed his own father to claim the throne. They said his wolf was twice the size of any normal shifter. They said he could sense lies, smell fear, hear heartbeats from 100 paces. They said he had no mate, and never would. That his wolf was too powerful, too feral, to bond with anyone. The crowd parted as the king's guard entered, first 12 warriors in black leather armor, their movements synchronized with military precision. Then came advisors, dignitaries, a blur of important faces that Seraphine couldn't focus on, because behind them walked the Alpha King. Thalric Valdrin was tall, taller even than Varen, with shoulders broad enough to block out the torchlight behind him. His hair was dark as a moonless night, swept back from a face that looked carved from stone, all sharp angles and shadows. But it was his eyes that stopped Seraphine's breath. Silver. Pure molten silver, like coins heated in a forge. And they were looking directly at her. Seraphine's heart slammed against her ribs. She tried to step back, to hide more fully behind the pillar, but her body wouldn't obey. Something held her frozen, pinned beneath that mercury gaze like a rabbit before a wolf. Impossible. He couldn't have noticed her among hundreds of pack members. She was nobody. She was nothing. Yet the Alpha King had stopped walking. The entire hall fell silent. His guards shifted uneasily. Even Varen seemed confused, his earlier swagger faltering as he descended the final steps to greet his sovereign. Your Majesty, Varen began, executing a formal bow. Ashvale Pack welcomes you with, who is she? The king's voice was deep, resonant, carrying effortlessly through the stone chamber. He hadn't looked away from Seraphine, hadn't even blinked. Varen faltered. I, who, Your Majesty? The woman by the pillar. Thalric took a step forward, then another. The one your pack seems so eager to humiliate. Seraphine felt the blood drain from her face. No, please, no. The last thing she needed was the Alpha King's attention, his questions, his scrutiny. She'd spent 3 years trying to become invisible. And now, that's just Seraphine, Your Majesty. Varen recovered quickly, his voice smooth. A mateless female of no consequence. I apologize if she's caused any. Mateless. The word came out flat. Dangerous. The Alpha King was close now. Close enough that Seraphine could see the silver rings around his pupils, could smell pine and winter wind, and something wild that made her silent, dormant wolf stir for the first time in years. You publicly shame a woman for being mateless, Thalric said softly. When you yourself have no mate, Alpha Varen? The insult landed like a physical blow. Varen's face flushed red. I am unmated by choice, Your Majesty. I'm waiting for a worthy. You rejected her. It wasn't a question. Thalric had stopped barely 2 feet from Seraphine, his silver eyes searching her face with an intensity that made her skin burn. 3 years ago, the binding ceremony. You rejected this woman. How could he possibly know that? Yes, Your Majesty. Varen's voice had gone tight. The bond was false. Defective. Show me your shoulder. Seraphine blinked. The command was directed at her, she realized. The Alpha King was speaking to her. I what? Her voice came out as a whisper. Your left shoulder. His jaw tightened. Show me. Seraphine's hand flew instinctively to the spot, pressing against the fabric of her dress. Beneath the cloth lay the mark she'd hidden her entire life, a birthmark. Her mother had always said, just an unusual birthmark, but it wasn't. She'd known that since childhood, since the first time she'd touched it and felt a pulse of heat that didn't belong to her own body. The mark was shaped like a crescent moon, cradling a single star. And sometimes, in the deep of night, it seemed to glow with faint silver light. Your Majesty, Varen interrupted, stepping between them. I don't know what you think you've seen, but this woman is nobody. She has no wolf, no power, no. Thalric moved so fast, Seraphine didn't see it happen. One moment Varen was standing, the next he was on his knees, the king's hand wrapped around his throat. You will not, Thalric said, his voice dropping to a growl that resonated with power. Stand between me and what is mine. Mine. The word echoed through the silent hall. Seraphine's heart stopped. Show me, Thalric commanded again, releasing Varen and turning back to her. His silver eyes had begun to glow, bright as twin moons. Please. The please broke something in her. This powerful king, this living legend, asking her, begging her with a single word. With shaking hands, Seraphine reached up and drew the fabric of her dress aside, exposing her left shoulder to the torchlight. The gasp that swept through the hall was immediate. Even Bryn stumbled backward, her hand pressed to her mouth, because the mark was glowing, not faintly, not subtly blazing with brilliant silver light that matched the king's eyes exactly, and as Seraphine watched in shock, the light pulsed, sending a wave of warmth flooding through her veins. Thalric exhaled sharply, something like pain crossing his features. He reached out, his fingers hovering over the mark without quite touching. 23 years, he breathed. I've been searching for 23 years. I don't understand. Seraphine's voice shook. What is this? What's happening to me? The Alpha King met her eyes, and in his gaze she saw wonder, relief, and a fierce, desperate hunger that stole her breath. You bear my mark, Seraphine. His voice was rough. The mark I gave you the night you were born. The mark of the Alpha King's true mate. The silence that followed the king's declaration was absolute. Seraphine couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stare at the man before her, as his words rearranged everything she thought she knew about her life. His mate. The Alpha King's mate. That's impossible. Varen scrambled to his feet, his face twisted with fury and disbelief. She can't be. I would have sensed it when I touched her. The bond would have. The bond was blocked. Thalric didn't look away from Seraphine. Hidden. I made sure of that when I marked her. When you marked her? Seraphine finally found her voice. I've never met you before tonight. How could you have? You were 3 days old. Something softened in his silver eyes. Your mother brought you to the Northern Dominion, seeking sanctuary from a blood feud that had claimed your father. My own father, the king before me, granted her protection. Seraphine's knees threatened to buckle. Her mother had never spoken of this, never mentioned traveling north, never mentioned meeting royalty. All she'd ever said about the birthmark was that Seraphine should keep it covered, keep it hidden, keep it safe. I was 15 years old, Thalric continued, old enough for my wolf to recognize his mate, even in a newborn child. The pull was. He paused, searching for words. Undeniable, terrifying. My wolf wanted to claim you immediately, to ensure no other male would ever touch you. A murmur ran through the crowd. The idea of a 15-year-old prince wanting to claim an infant was unsettling, even by shifter standards. Obviously, that wasn't possible, Thalric said, and Seraphine detected a hint of dry humor beneath the gravity. So my father devised another solution. A dormant mark, one that would identify you as mine, without awakening the full bond until you came of age. It would also mask your scent, hiding you from other wolves who might try to claim you. Hiding me. Seraphine's mind raced. That's why Varen couldn't sense the bond. That's why he rejected me. He rejected you because he sensed something he couldn't understand, Thalric said coldly, a claim that superseded his own. His wolf recognized you weren't truly available, even if his conscious mind couldn't comprehend why. Varen snarled. You're telling me I gave up the Alpha King's mate? That I've had her in my pack for 3 years and didn't? You humiliated her. Thalric's voice went deadly quiet. Shamed her. Made her believe she was broken when she was the most valuable woman in the realm. The Alpha King turned, and Seraphine saw murder in his eyes as he faced Varen. For that alone, I should tear out your throat. Your Majesty. One of Thalric's advisors stepped forward, a silver-haired man with worry etched across his features. Perhaps we should continue this discussion in private. The binding protocols, there will be no discussion. Thalric's command silenced the man immediately. She returns with me to the Northern Dominion tonight. What? Seraphine's shock cut through her daze. I can't just. My sister is here. My life is here. Your life has been a lie. Thalric faced her again, and she saw the effort it took for him to gentle his tone. Everything you've experienced, the isolation, the dormant wolf, the inability to find a mate, all of it stems from my mark. A mark that's been waiting for this moment. He reached for her hand, and the instant his fingers touched hers, Seraphine gasped. Heat exploded through her body, radiating from the contact point up her arm and straight to her heart. Her vision blurred, and for a terrifying moment, she saw double the Great Hall overlaid with an image of snow-covered mountains and a castle built into the cliffs, and she felt something else. Something that had been sleeping inside her for 23 years, her wolf. It rose like a creature breaching the surface of dark water, stretching, awakening, turning its attention toward the man whose touch had called it from slumber. The sensation was overwhelming joy and recognition, and desperate, clawing need all tangled together. Mate, her wolf whispered. Finally, mate. Seraphine yanked her hand back, stumbling away from Thalric. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it echoing in her skull. What did you do to me? She demanded. Thalric's expression flickered hurt, quickly masked. The bond is awakening. Your wolf is responding to my presence. I don't want it awakening. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. I don't want any of this. You can't just appear after 23 years and expect me to. Sarah. Bryn was at her side suddenly, gripping her elbow. Sarah. Your eyes. What about my eyes? They're gold. Her sister's voice trembled. Bright gold. I've never seen them change before. Seraphine raised her hand to her face as if she could somehow see her own eyes. Gold. The color of an awakened wolf. The color she'd watched other shifters display her entire life, while her own eyes remained stubbornly, shamefully human. She turned to flee from the staring crowd, from Varen's murderous glare, from Thalric and his impossible claims, but she'd taken only 3 steps before the world tilted violently. Pain lanced through her skull. Her bones began to ache, a deep grinding sensation that made her cry out. She felt her wolf surge forward, fighting for control, trying to force a shift that her body had never experienced. Seraphine. Thalric caught her before she hit the ground, his arms wrapping around her with surprising gentleness. Don't fight it. Your wolf has been caged too long. Fighting will only make the transition harder. It hurts, she gasped. I know. His voice was rough with anguish. I know it hurts. I'm sorry. I never meant for you to suffer like this. She looked up at him through tear-blurred eyes, saw the torment written across his features. And despite everything, despite the chaos and confusion and fear, she believed him. What's happening to me? She whispered. You're becoming who you were always meant to be. He pressed his forehead to hers, and she felt his wolf reaching for hers, offering comfort, offering strength. Just hold on to me. I won't let you fall. The last thing Seraphine saw before darkness claimed her was silver, pure molten silver, staring down at her, with 23 years of desperate longing finally given a name. Seraphine woke to unfamiliar stone walls and the scent of pine. She lay in a bed far grander than any she'd ever known. Draped in furs so soft they seemed to melt beneath her fingers, pale morning light streamed through tall windows, illuminating a chamber that could have housed her entire family cottage twice over. The Northern Dominion. She was in the Alpha King's territory. Memory crashed back the Great Hall, Varen's cruelty, Thalric's revelation, the agonizing awakening of her wolf. Seraphine sat up too quickly, and immediately regretted it as her head swam. "Easy, child." A woman's voice, warm but firm. "You've been unconscious for 2 days. Your body needs time to adjust." Seraphine turned to find an elderly woman rising from a chair by the window. She had silver-white hair braided down her back, and eyes the pale blue of glacier ice. Despite her age, she moved with the fluid grace of a shifter. "I'm Alara," the woman said, approaching the bed. "The king's healer and advisor. I've been tending to you since you arrived." 2 days? Seraphine pressed her palm to her forehead. "I've been unconscious for 2 days? Your wolf's awakening was violent." Alara's expression grew troubled. The mark suppressed her for too long. When she finally emerged, she nearly tore you apart from the inside. Seraphine remembered the grinding pain, the sensation of her bones trying to reshape themselves. "But I didn't shift. Did I?" "No, you're not ready yet." Alara sat on the edge of the bed, studying Seraphine with unnerving intensity. "Your wolf is awake, but the connection between you is fragile. Forced too quickly, it could kill you both." The word kill sent ice through Seraphine's veins. "So what do I do?" "You need time, rest, and..." Alara hesitated. "And what?" "Proximity to your mate," the healer's voice gentled. "The bond between you and the king is incomplete. Your wolf needs his presence to stabilize, to learn its own strength. Without that anchor, the awakening could go wrong in ways I'd rather not describe." Seraphine's cheeks flushed. "You want me to spend time with him? With the king? I want you to survive." Alara's tone left no room for argument. "And right now, he is your best chance at that." Before Seraphine could respond, a knock sounded at the door. Alara rose and crossed to answer it, speaking in low tones with whoever stood beyond. When she returned, her expression had shifted to something Seraphine couldn't read. "He's here," Alara said. "He's been waiting outside your chamber since you arrived. I've told him you need rest, but..." She shook her head. "His wolf is as unstable as yours. The bond demands completion, and denial causes him pain." Pain. The Alpha King, the most powerful man in the realm, was in pain because of her. "Let him in," Seraphine said quietly. Alara nodded and opened the door. Thalric entered slowly, as if afraid any sudden movement might startle her. He looked different in the morning light, still impossibly tall, still carved from shadow and authority, but there were dark circles beneath his silver eyes, and his jaw was tight with strain. "Seraphine." Her name left his lips like a prayer. "How do you feel?" "Confused," she admitted. "Overwhelmed. Like my entire life has been revealed as a lie." He winced. "I know. I'm sorry. If there had been any other way, why didn't you come for me sooner?" The question burst out before she could stop it. 23 years, you said. You knew where I was. You knew what I was suffering. Why did you wait so long?" Thalric was silent for a moment. Then he crossed to the window, staring out at the snow-capped mountains beyond. "Because I was afraid." The admission startled her. This powerful man? This king? Confessing fear? "The mark was designed to remain dormant until you came of age," he said. "Until you were ready. But he exhaled heavily. "I felt you, Seraphine. Every day for 23 years, I felt echoes of you through the bond. Your joy, your sorrow, your loneliness." He turned to face her, and she saw the anguish he'd been hiding. "When Varen rejected you, I felt your heart break. When the pack mocked you, I felt your shame. And every single time, I wanted to come for you, to tear apart anyone who dared hurt you. Then why didn't you?" "Because my wolf was too strong." His voice dropped. "I wasn't just the prince when I marked you, I was already showing signs of becoming the most powerful alpha in generations. My father warned me that if I went to you too soon, before you were ready, my wolf would complete the bond by force. It would overwhelm you. Consume you, leave nothing of who you were. Seraphine felt cold. You mean it would have killed me? Or worse, his silver eyes held hers. It would have made you a shadow, a vessel for my wolf's mate bond, with no will of your own. I've seen it happen to others, when powerful alphas claim mates who aren't strong enough to withstand them. So you waited. So I waited. Hoped you would grow strong enough to match me. A bitter smile crossed his features. I didn't anticipate that the mark would suppress your wolf so completely. I thought you would develop normally, that the dormancy would only hide you from other males. Instead, it caged a part of you that should have been free. Seraphine processed this slowly. He'd been protecting her by staying away, or at least, he believed he had. But in doing so, he'd condemned her to years of isolation and shame. What happens now? She asked. Thalric approached the bed, each step careful, controlled. When he reached her side, he knelt, bringing his eyes level with hers. Now we complete the bond, he said. Slowly, carefully, in a way that gives your wolf time to grow strong enough to stand beside mine. And if I refuse? His jaw tightened. Then the incomplete bond will eventually destroy us both. The awakening has already begun, it cannot be reversed. We either complete it together, or we die apart. There it was. The impossible choice she'd sensed, lurking beneath every word. I have a condition, she said quietly. Surprise flickered across his features. Name it. My sister Bryn. I won't stay here while she's trapped in Ashvale with Varen. After what happened, he'll take his anger out on her. Thalric's expression hardened into something dangerous. I've already sent warriors to retrieve her. She should arrive by nightfall. Relief flooded through Seraphine, followed immediately by suspicion. You anticipated this. I anticipated that you would care more about your family's safety than your own. The corner of his mouth curved slightly. It seems I know my mate better than she realizes. His mate. The word sent her wolf stirring, a warm pulse of recognition that Seraphine still wasn't entirely comfortable with. I have another question, she said. Ask. Elara mentioned that your wolf is unstable too, that the incomplete bond causes you pain. She studied his face. How much pain? For a long moment, Thalric didn't answer. Then he reached for her hand slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers intertwined with hers, and she felt that same electric warmth from the great hall, though gentler now. More than you can imagine, he admitted. And worth every moment, now that you're finally here. The days that followed were unlike anything Seraphine had ever experienced. True to his word, Thalric took the bonding process slowly. Each morning, he would visit her chamber, and they would simply talk about her childhood in Ashvale, about his responsibilities as king, about the strange new sensations flooding her awakening senses. He never pushed, never demanded, and gradually, the terror Seraphine had felt began to transform into something else entirely. Curiosity. And beneath that, a warmth she was afraid to name. Your wolf is growing stronger, Elara announced on the 5th morning, pressing cool fingers to Seraphine's temples. The bond is stabilizing her. A few more days, and we can attempt your first shift. Seraphine should have felt relief. Instead, her chest tightened with anxiety. What troubles you? Thalric asked from his chair by the window. He'd taken to watching her examinations with quiet intensity, as if memorizing every detail of her recovery. Nothing, she lied. Your heartbeat says otherwise. Of course it did. He could hear everything now, every flutter, every skip, every traitorous acceleration when he stood too close. Elara excused herself with a knowing look, leaving them alone. The silence stretched between them, charged with unspoken things. I'm afraid, Seraphine admitted finally, of the shift, of what I might become. Thalric rose and crossed to her bedside. He moved differently around her now, still careful, but with less restraint. As if her growing strength gave him permission to be more himself. What do you think you'll become? He asked. I don't know. That's what frightens me. She looked down at her hands. I've spent my whole life being told I was broken, defective. What if they were right? What if my wolf is... Your wolf is magnificent. The conviction in his voice made her look up. I felt her when you collapsed in the great hall, Thalric continued. She's been caged for 23 years, starved and suppressed, and still she fought to protect you. Still she reached for me across the void. His silver eyes blazed. There is nothing broken about you, Seraphine. There never was. Before she could respond, he reached out and cupped her face in his hands. The touch sent fire racing through her veins, her wolf surging toward the surface with desperate recognition. "May I show you something?" he murmured. Seraphine nodded, not trusting her voice. Thalric closed his eyes, and she felt his wolf reaching through the incomplete bond, not demanding, not overwhelming, but offering, showing her what he saw when he looked at her. The vision crashed over her like a wave. She saw herself through his eyes, not the rejected, mateless woman Ashvale had taught her to see, but something luminous, powerful, a wolf with fur like moonlight, and eyes like molten gold, standing beside a massive black wolf that could only be Thalric. Together, they were devastating. "That's how I see you," Thalric whispered, withdrawing from her mind. "That's who you truly are." Seraphine realized she was crying. When had she started crying? "I want to believe you," she breathed. "Then believe me." He leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching hers. "Let me show you every day until you do." The air between them grew heavy, electric. Seraphine's wolf was howling now, demanding she close the distance, demanding she claim what was hers. And for the first time, she wanted to listen. She tilted her face up just as Thalric tilted his down. The door burst open. "Your Majesty!" A warrior stumbled into the chamber, his face pale with urgency. "Forgive me, but there's been an attack. The southern border Ashvale warriors crossed into our territory. They've taken the healer's apprentice, and they're demanding." "Demanding what?" Thalric's voice had gone cold as winter steel. The warrior swallowed. "They're demanding the return of Seraphine. Alpha Varen claims she was taken against her will. He's invoked the old law's trial by combat for the right to claim her." Seraphine's blood turned to ice. Trial by combat. The ancient ritual that allowed any alpha to challenge another for a disputed mate. "If Varen won, he can't," she whispered. "The mark, I'm already yours. The bond is incomplete." Thalric's jaw was tight with fury. "By the letter of the old laws, you remain unclaimed until it's finalized. Varen knows this. He's counting on it. Then complete it now. Tonight. It would kill you." The words seemed torn from him. "Your wolf isn't strong enough yet. The full bond would overwhelm her, and I would lose you forever." Seraphine stared at him, seeing the impossible position he'd been placed in. Complete the bond and risk destroying her, or face Varen in combat and risk losing her to the very man who had broken her heart. "There has to be another way," she said. Thalric's expression hardened into something terrifying. "There is. I'll kill him. And if you lose, I won't. But if you do," he silenced her with a look. "I have waited 23 years for you, Seraphine. I have felt your pain, your loneliness, your despair, and I have been unable to do anything but watch from afar. Do you truly believe I would let anyone take you from me now?" The raw possessiveness in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it made her wolf sing with savage satisfaction. "When?" she asked. "Tomorrow. Sunrise." Thalric turned to the warrior. "Send word to Varen. I accept his challenge." As the warrior departed, Seraphine caught Thalric's arm. "Promise me something." He looked down at her hand on his sleeve, then up at her face. "Anything. Promise me you'll come back to me." Something cracked in his silver eyes, the careful control he'd maintained since bringing her here finally fracturing. "I swear it," he said roughly. "On my life. On my wolf. On the bond that has tied us together since the moment you were born." He lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a burning kiss to her knuckles. Then, he was gone, leaving Seraphine alone, with her fear and the terrible knowledge that tomorrow could destroy everything. Seraphine didn't sleep that night. She paced her chamber until her legs ached, then stood at the window watching the stars wheel overhead. Somewhere out there, Varen was preparing to fight for her, not out of love, but out of wounded pride. The thought made her sick. Near midnight, her door opened silently. "Bryn?" Seraphine turned, expecting her sister, who had arrived safely 3 days ago and had been keeping a careful distance while Seraphine recovered. But it wasn't Bryn. A cloaked figure slipped into the chamber, closing the door with barely a whisper of sound. Before Seraphine could scream, a hand clamped over her mouth. "Easy, little wolf." The voice was female, melodic, and utterly unfamiliar. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to warn you." The hand withdrew, and Seraphine stumbled backward, her wolf snarling in her chest. The stranger pushed back her hood, revealing a face of sharp beauty, high cheekbones, tawny gold eyes, dark hair streaked with silver. She looked ageless, neither young nor old, and she moved with the fluid grace of something not entirely human. "Who are you?" Seraphine demanded. "My name is Thessaly. I was your mother's closest friend." The woman's tawny gaze held steady. "And I'm here because there are things you need to know before dawn. Things that could save both your life and your mate's." Seraphine's heart stuttered. "You knew my mother? I knew many things your mother never told you." Thessaly moved to the window, her gaze scanning the darkness below, including the truth about why she really brought you to the Northern Dominion 23 years ago. She was fleeing a blood feud. Thalric told me. Thalric told you what he believed." Thessaly turned to face her. "But the blood feud wasn't started by rival clans. It was started by someone within your own pack, someone who discovered what your mother really was." A chill crawled up Seraphine's spine. "What do you mean?" "What she was. Your mother wasn't just a shifter, Seraphine. She was a moonborn, a witch blessed by the moon goddess herself with the power to heal, to see truth, and to forge bonds that transcend normal limitations." Thessaly's voice dropped. "Powers that she passed to you." The room tilted. "That's impossible. I have no magic. My wolf was dormant for—" "Your wolf was dormant, because the king's mark suppressed everything supernatural within you. But the power is there. It's been there since birth, sleeping alongside your wolf, waiting to awaken." Seraphine thought of the strange sensations she'd felt since arriving, the way she could sometimes sense emotions that weren't her own, the way healing herbs seemed to respond to her touch in the infirmary she'd visited yesterday. "Even if that's true," she said slowly, "what does it have to do with Varen's challenge?" Thessaly's expression darkened. "Varen doesn't want you as a mate, child. He wants what's inside you. Your mother's power, your power, is the key to breaking any bond, including the Alpha King's mark. If Varen can force the incomplete bond to shatter, he can claim that power for himself. But I don't know how to use any power. I can barely control my wolf." "Exactly." Thessaly gripped her shoulders. "Which is why he's not planning to fight fairly tomorrow. He's aligned himself with something ancient, something dark, a shadow that has been hunting moonborn bloodlines for centuries." Ice flooded Seraphine's veins. "What shadow?" "I don't have time to explain everything, but you need to understand, the trial by combat is a trap. Varen doesn't intend to defeat Thalric in honorable battle. He intends to kill him, using forbidden magic, and then take you before anyone can intervene. Then I have to warn Thalric." "You have to do more than warn him." Thessaly's tawny eyes burned into hers. "You have to wake your power, Seraphine. Fully. Completely. It's the only thing that can counter what Varen has allied himself with." "How?" Elara said. "My wolf isn't strong enough for the full bond yet. If I push too hard, the bond isn't the only path to your power." Thessaly pressed something into her palm, a small, silver pendant, shaped like a crescent moon, cradling a star, the same symbol as her birthmark. "This belonged to your mother. When the moment comes, you'll know what to do." A sound echoed from the corridor, footsteps approaching. "I have to go." Thessaly was already moving toward the window. "Remember what I told you. And remember this. Above all, love is not weakness. Love is the source of the greatest power our kind has ever known." She slipped through the window and vanished into the darkness, leaving Seraphine clutching the pendant, her mind reeling with impossible revelations. Moonborn, forbidden magic. A trap designed to destroy everything she'd only just begun to hope for. When Bryn arrived, moments later, alerted by the commotion, Seraphine made a decision. "I need you to help me get to the combat grounds before dawn," she said. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I won't let him face it alone." The combat grounds lay in a natural amphitheater carved into the mountainside, ancient stones marking its boundaries. As the first gray light of dawn crept over the peaks, Seraphine stood hidden among the gathered crowd, her mother's pendant clutched tight against her chest. Thalric was already in the arena, stripped to the waist, his powerful body coiled with lethal readiness. Across from him, Varen circled with predatory patience, his dark eyes gleaming with something that made Seraphine's wolf snarl in recognition. Wrong. Something was deeply, fundamentally wrong. "Citizens of both packs," the officiating elder announced, "we gather to witness trial by combat for the disputed claim of the female Seraphine. By the old laws, the victor shall hold right of courtship, If the female is found to be already bonded, that bond shall be honored. If not, if not, she comes with me. Varen's voice carried across the arena, finding Seraphine in the crowd as if he'd known exactly where she stood, where she belongs. Thalric's growl reverberated through the stone. You rejected her. You have no claim. I rejected a deception. Varen began to shift, his bones cracking and reforming. A mask placed on her by your father to steal what should have been mine. His wolf emerged dark brown, massive, but there was something off about its movements. Shadows seemed to cling to its fur, writhing like living things. Thessaly's warning screamed through Seraphine's mind. Thalric shifted as well, his wolf enormous and black as midnight, silver eyes blazing with fury. The two alphas circled each other, and then they clashed. The battle was devastating. Teeth and claws tore through fur and flesh. Blood splattered across the ancient stones. The crowd watched in breathless horror as two of the most powerful alphas in the realm tried to destroy each other. But something was wrong. Seraphine could see it. Thalric was faster, stronger, and more skilled. He should have been winning, yet every wound he inflicted on Varen seemed to heal almost instantly, while his own injuries remained, bleeding freely. The shadows. They were healing Varen, feeding him power that didn't belong to him. Thalric! She screamed, but her voice was lost in the crowd's roar. Varen's jaws clamped around Thalric's throat. The Alpha King twisted free, but not before Seraphine saw the dark poison spreading, from the bite's silver-black corruption seeping into his veins. The same wrongness Thessaly had warned her about, the same darkness she'd sensed clinging to Varen since he entered the arena. Thalric stumbled. Fell. No. 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 Seraphine's wolf exploded against her barriers, demanding release, demanding she save her mate. But Ilara's warnings echoed in her mind, the shift could kill her. Her wolf wasn't ready. Varen prowled toward Thalric's fallen form, shadows writhing triumphantly around him. The great Alpha King, he snarled, his voice somehow emerging from his wolf's throat. Brought low by the same power that killed the last moonborn bitch who defied me, the last moonborn, her mother. Something cracked open inside Seraphine. Not her wolf, something deeper. Something ancient and terrible and blazing with righteous fury. She pushed through the crowd and leaped into the arena. Seraphine? No! Bryn's scream echoed behind her, but she was already running toward Thalric's body, her mother's pendant burning against her skin. Varen turned, his shadow-wreathed wolf grinning with malevolent delight. Ah! There you are, little moonborn. Come to watch your mate die? Come to end this. The words emerged from Seraphine's throat in a voice she didn't recognize, layered, resonant, thrumming with power. She fell to her knees beside Thalric, pressing her hands to his chest. His heartbeat was fading, the shadow poison consuming him from within. No, I won't let you take him from me. Seraphine closed her eyes and reached not for her wolf, but for something beneath, something older. The power Thessaly had spoken of. The inheritance her mother had died protecting. Light exploded from her palms. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't controlled. It was raw, primal, devastating moonlight condensed into pure force, pouring into Thalric's body and burning the shadows to ash. Varen howled in fury and lunged for her. But Seraphine was already turning, her hands raised, her eyes blazing with silver-gold fire. The power surged through her, seeking an outlet, demanding release. She didn't know what she was doing. She only knew she would die before she let this monster touch her mate again. The collision of light and shadow was catastrophic. Seraphine felt the impact shatter something inside her, felt her wolf scream in agony, felt the world tilt and fragment, as the power she couldn't control consumed everything in its path. The last thing she heard before darkness claimed her was Thalric's voice, raw with anguish, screaming her name. Seraphine drifted in darkness. There was no pain here, no fear. Only a vast, quiet emptiness that stretched in all directions. Is this death? She wondered. Not yet, a voice answered. Familiar, warm, achingly beloved. Mother. Seraphine turned or thought she turned, in this strange place without direction, and found herself facing a woman made of moonlight. She had Seraphine's eyes, Seraphine's cheekbones, and a smile that cracked something open in Seraphine's chest. My brave girl, her mother said. You finally found your fire. I don't understand what's happening to me. You're changing, becoming what you were always meant to be. But you have a choice to make, daughter. The power you unleashed damaged you badly, your wolf, your body, everything. You can let go now, slip away peacefully, and I'll be here waiting. Or you can fight. For yourself. For your sister. For your mate who is currently tearing apart every healer in the Northern Dominion, because he refuses to believe you're dying. Even here, in this strange between place, Seraphine felt her heart lurch. Thalric is alive? You saved him, the shadow poison is destroyed. But he's destroying himself with grief, child. He believes he failed you, believes the bond he gave you as a baby is what killed you in the end. Seraphine thought of silver eyes filled with 23 years of desperate longing. Thought of gentle hands and whispered promises, and the vision of moonlight wolves running together through endless forests. How do I go back? Her mother smiled. The same way you've done everything else, my daughter. By refusing to break, the darkness shattered. Seraphine slammed back into her body with a gasp that felt like drowning in reverse. Pain roared through every nerve, her wolf howling, her power flickering wildly, her bones aching with the memory of transformation. She was lying on a stone altar, surrounded by candles and weeping women, and the heavy scent of funeral herbs. A funeral? They thought she was dead. With strength she didn't know she possessed, Seraphine forced herself upright. The scream that erupted from the gathered mourners was almost comical. Alara dropped an entire bowl of sacred oils. Bryn collapsed against a pillar, sobbing with sudden, hysterical relief. But Seraphine's eyes found only one person. Where is he? Her voice came out as a croak. Where's Thalric? Alara recovered first. The sacred grove. He went there an hour ago. Said if you were gone? He had no reason to. Seraphine was already moving. She didn't remember leaving the altar, didn't remember pushing through the castle corridors, and didn't remember bursting into the cold mountain air. Her body was screaming with exhaustion and residual damage, but none of it mattered. He's going to kill himself, just like the story said the mate, who couldn't bear to survive alone. Her wolf surged forward, and this time, Seraphine didn't fight her. The transformation was agony, bones cracking, muscles tearing. Everything she was remaking itself into something new. But beneath the pain was power, and beneath the power was love, and love refused to let her fall. When the shift completed, Seraphine stood on 4 legs for the first time in her life. Her fur was silver white, exactly as Thalric had shown her in his vision. Her paws barely touched the snow as she ran, and her heart knew exactly where to find him. The sacred grove was ancient, filled with stones carved by wolves who had lived and died 1,000 years ago. At its center stood a stone altar, and before that altar knelt Thalric in human form, a silver blade pressed to his own throat. Seraphine shifted mid-stride, crashing back into her human body with graceless desperation, and her voice tore across the sacred space before she could stop it. Don't! Thalric's head snapped up, the blade clattered from nerveless fingers. Seraphine? His voice broke on her name. You can't be. I felt you die. I felt the bond go dark. I came back. She was running again, barefoot across frozen ground, her newly shifted body screaming with protest. I came back for you, you impossible. Stubborn. She crashed into him hard enough to knock them both to the ground. Thalric's arms wrapped around her with crushing force, his face buried in her hair, his entire body shaking with sobs he couldn't contain. You died, he gasped. You died. And it was my fault. The mark I gave you, the bond I forced on you, saved me. Seraphine pulled back to look at him, at the tear tracks on his cheeks, at the devastation in his silver eyes. Your bond, your mark, your love, it saved me, Thalric. It's the only reason I found my way back. But the power it destroyed you, it transformed me. She cupped his face in her hands, marveling at the fact that she could touch him, that he was solid and warm and alive beneath her palms. And now I need to complete what we started. His breath caught. Seraphine, you can't possibly be strong enough to. I'm strong enough. She'd never been more certain of anything. I was strong enough to die and come back. I was strong enough to shift for the first time and race across a mountain. I was strong enough to love you before I even knew your name. She pressed her forehead to his, feeling their wolves reaching for each other, feeling the incomplete bond straining toward completion. Let me claim you, she whispered. Let me make this bond unbreakable. Let me prove to every wolf in every pack that I chose you not because of a mark given in infancy, But because you are mine and I am yours, and nothing in this world or the next will ever change that. Thalric's silver eyes searched her face, looking for doubt, for hesitation, finding none. Then claim me, he breathed. I've been yours since the moment you were born. Seraphine kissed him, fierce and desperate, and full of 23 years of loneliness finally ending. She felt his wolf rise to meet hers, felt the bond between them pulse with recognition. And when her teeth found the place where his neck met his shoulder, when she bit down and tasted copper and moonlight and the wild essence of her mate, the world exploded into sensation. The bond completed with a force that shook the ancient stones. Seraphine felt everything, his joy, his relief, his overwhelming love, his wolf howling in triumph. And beneath it all, she felt the unshakable certainty that she would never be alone again. Mine, her wolf sang. Yours, his wolf answered. Always. When they finally pulled apart, both gasping, both crying, both laughing with incredulous joy, Thalric looked at her with an expression of pure wonder. My queen, he breathed. My mate, my miracle. Seraphine smiled through her tears. Take me home. And he did. The coronation of Queen Seraphine of the Northern Dominion was the most attended ceremony in living memory. Wolves came from every corner of the realm, some to gawk at the mateless reject who had claimed the Alpha King, others to witness the Moonborn who had destroyed an ancient evil with nothing but love and raw power. Varen was dead, consumed by the very shadows he'd bargained with. Ashvale Pack had begged forgiveness and sworn fealty, and Bryn stood at Seraphine's side as her chief advisor, amber eyes bright with pride. But none of that mattered as much as the moment Thalric placed the crown on Seraphine's head and leaned down to whisper in her ear. 23 years ago, I marked a baby girl and promised my wolf I would find her. Today, I crown my queen and promise her forever. Seraphine smiled up at him, her heart so full it ached. Forever sounds perfect, she whispered back, and as the crowd erupted in celebration, as moonlight poured through the great windows of the throne room, as her wolf sang in harmony with his, Seraphine finally understood what she'd been searching for her entire life. Not acceptance, not validation, not proof that she wasn't broken. Home. She had finally found her way home.